What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Boozer here. Thanks for stopping by. Today's video, we're going to be rating all of the fusions of all time. Currently, there is an ongoing fusion for Cassandra, part of the Assassin's Creed collab. And needless to say, she's a little bit on the controversial side, I guess. So it made me think about fusions in general and just generally how useful are they for the overall player base. Now, I'm going to do two videos here. This video is just going to be an overall rating of all time. And then I'm going to follow up this video with another fusion video that more or less rates them based on what was expected of them and whether they actually met our expectations or did not meet our expectations. Now, first, I want to preface that all tier lists are going to be inherently something wrong with them. It's obviously very opinionated. If you're a brand new player in this game and you pull one of these champions from a shard, they're probably going to be pretty good for you just because legendaries is just good for brand new players in general because of their stats, their kits, for example. So don't take it too hard if I say the champion is not good, because I'm more looking at it as a holistic view of your entire raid career, how good that champion will be for the duration of time. Or I guess we can say how quickly you can outgrow that champion or how long that champion stays useful on your account. Now, as for the tier list system here, I have a S tier in the red category. I have a S minus tier. And these are champions that kind of require at least one champion to become S tier. And I'll provide some reasoning for why I did that. In my previous tier list, I rated the champions from 2025, the fusions. And there were some comments that said, you know, some of these S tier champions shouldn't be S tier because they require X, Y, Z. And I was like, okay, fine, that's fair. So I just decided to make their own category. We have A tier, good, solid, generally good champions that probably get lots of use. We have B champions, they're average, useful in some cases, but obviously get overshadowed by A tier and S tier champions. And then I'm just going to go straight to the D tier category, which is limited. I don't want to say niche, because niche I think is maybe too restrictive, but I'm just going to say limited use. And I'll provide a visual on the right hand side because not everybody knows every champion in raid. All right, let's jump right into it. So first up, we have Titus. Titus was a recent fusion from the 2025 year, and he is absolutely insane. He has transformed the Hydra scene, the Chimera scene, mainly because he bases damage off of shield size, and we all know how busted that is. But he does require his partner in crime, Wixwell, so he's not S tier by himself, but he is basically S tier with Wixwell. So we're going to slot him firmly into that category. Up next, we have Kraw's Wallbreaker. Kraw's Wallbreaker, he's a touchless bomber. So his attack doesn't actually touch the champion, so his affinity doesn't really matter. That's his biggest draw. He has an A1 that reduces the detonation of his attacks or his bombs, but I'm not liking the fact that he doesn't get an extra turn. He does steal turn meter, but that doesn't guarantee you that he get an extra turn. So he's sitting on a 2-turn duration for the bomb detonation, which means you might not realize the value of your damage until 2 turns later. He does have a little bit of crowd control, and he does bring damage to a faction that is kind of limited. So I'm going to say he's overall kind of useful just because he can help the Ogryn tribes out a bit. All right, next up we have Yuki Massa. So this is our Christmas fusion. Now this guy was basically, sold as a reviver for the Shadowkin faction. They don't really have a reviver. So sorry, they do have one. I forgot his name, Masamoto, I think. But anyways, not widely used. Now, he's probably the best reviver for the Shadowkin, and he is a damage dealer. He does have some AoE crowd control as well, and he can hit pretty hard on his A3. Bit of a mixed bag here, but if he's being sold as a faction wars type of champion, the faction Shadowkin actually has lots of good champions, so he's not going to be super helpful there. But if you need a reviver for the faction, then yes, he's going to fill that role pretty good. I'm going to put him in the A tier. I think he's overall pretty decent. Has a lot of cool stuff in his kit and can be helpful in a lot of different areas. All right, up next we have Esme the Dancer from the Barbarian faction. She's got a speed lead aura, which is great. She has a really cool A1, which brings a increased attack for all allies. It's just an A1 that attacks one enemy that brings increased attack for all allies. You can kind of trigger this before she takes a turn by with ally attack or something like that. So then she goes in with the A1 and buffs your whole team. That's pretty cool. Her biggest sell is going to be this A2, a 3-turn weaken with the block buffs. Now, those 2 debuffs are going to be really good in Hydra, for example. She does have an A3 here. It's on a 4-turn cooldown. Unfortunately, I think that holds it back quite a bit with the increased speed, increased accuracy. If this was a 3-turn cooldown, I could see this really shooting up her value here. And her passive is a little bit interesting as well. She does increase the turn meter of your champion with the highest attack whenever she is hit. So that could lead to some cool things, maybe dish out a little bit more damage. Some okay things about her. She's definitely not bad, but I wouldn't say she's extremely good. So I'm going to put her in the useful category because she can be useful for places like Hydra. All right, quickly moving on to our next champion. We have Donatello from the Lizard Men, and he's part of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle collab that we just had not too long ago. He was the fusion for this collab, and Donatello is absolutely amazing. I love this guy. He's definitely finding his way into a lot of team comps. Now, he's not the best in the business, even with his ability here, his 2-turn reduction ability. It's not the best in the business. For example, Fidi has a similar ability on a 3-turn cooldown reduction. So he's going to be outclassed in that area. But Donatello has a lot in his kit that makes him really, really strong and competitive against some of these really, really top champions. He brings a cleanse on a 3-turn cooldown with with strengthen and continuous heal and a turn meter fill. That's a lot of stuff going on for 3-turn cooldown ability, and a super annoying passive that protects the first champion that dies. So if you're trying to kill off an enemy nuker, that's going to be a big problem for you. His passive will protect that champion. The fact that he's also super easy to build, you just build him with HP and speed. You don't really need accuracy on him or anything. And yeah, the way he fits into tons and tons of builds. He doesn't revive anybody, but he's an incredible support. Lots of healing, a strengthen, increased speed, turn meter boost, cleansing, and then the revive, not the revive, but the protection passive, as well as the cooldown reduction. I love this champion. I think he's, obviously insane with Leonardo. If you only had one turtle to pair with Leonardo, it's probably going to be Donatello. But without Leonardo, I think Donatello is still extremely, extremely good. So I'm going to put him in the first of the S tier. I think he's that good, guys. He's just so flexible, so easy to use, and I think he helps everyone. All right, up next we got Crocat, the Throat Ripper. So this is the the dog that we waited so long for. He came after about 1 year after his partner was released in a fusion, Shayak, Packmaster. Yeah, he really was, he really delivered. He really delivered when he was announced, and once people started playtesting him, he's really strong. He's got an A1 AoE that basically negates all of this stuff: reflect damage, ally protection, pain link. His A2 hits really hard. It's an AoE leech with a weaken on a 3-turn cooldown, and his A3 hits super hard on a single target, ignore 50% of the target's defense right away. And he pairs extremely well with Packmaster Shayak. I think by himself, he is probably an A tier champion because he's not going to dish out as much damage because he doesn't get the counterattacks and all that stuff. And the damage from having Packmaster on the same team. But with Packmaster, I think he's absolutely insane. He just demolishes waves. So if you have the two of them in Faction Wars, he just demolishes everybody. Even in Arena, they can get kind of tricky as well if you're not ready for them. And this guy is a top Hydra damage dealer with Shayak. Even though Shayak deals no damage, this guy more than makes up for his lack of damage. So I'm going to put Crocat here in the S tier that requires a XYZ champion. He is just that good, guys. All right, up next we have Lysanthir, another fusion from 2025. Big thing about this guy, probably for Hydra, decrease speed and weaken on a 3-turn cooldown can be useful. It's bringing A1, increase crit damage as well, and then the A2 is going to be his basically default skill when he goes in with an ally attack. This one does hit okay, and if you have a lot of ally attackers on your team, he can dish out some pretty good damage. He has a damage scaling passive as well. And he's defense based, so he's going to stay alive relatively okay. Decreased speed AoE is not going to be that easy for a lot of people, especially in the beginning. So I do find him relatively useful. Although his kit is kind of blah, not super inspiring, he will be kind of useful in some areas, especially Hydra. So I think he's going to fit in right there perfectly fine. Up next, we have Ishiyama, the Immovable. He's a damage dealer for the Shadowkin faction, HP based. The big thing about him is that he does bring some relevant debuffs for wave control. Like, for example, he has Fear. He can weaken them with the decreased crit rate and decreased crit damage. But these debuffs are just generally not super strong. It is on a 3-turn cooldown. He's lining 3 debuffs, which is, good value. But the strength of the debuffs is not super good. The A3 here, he does bring a little bit of damage here with the ignore 25% of the target's defense on a single target hit. And potentially this could be a pretty big hit with the 50% ignore defense if they're under 2 or more debuffs. He does bring debuffs himself, so he could kind of self-buff himself for his A3. I wish his A2 brought a little bit better debuffs, and then this ability could actually be pretty decent. He is HP based, so he's a little bit harder to kill, but he's not going to hit particularly hard unless he gets the 50% ignore defense here. So I think he's also in a stacked faction with the Shadowkin, so I think he's just not going to find too many spots for people's rosters to be super useful. So I'm going to put him in the D tier as limited champion. All right, guys, up next, we got the Mad Hatter here. This guy is really, really good. He's got the AoE Hex with the weaken on a 3-turn cooldown. He also brings in your highest crit damage champion to help attack as well, so that's going to deal some extra damage. And then he's got an A3, 3-turn cooldown again with the turn meter boost, increased duration of all buffs, and increased duration of all debuffs. And his passive is actually really solid as well. Every 10 turns taken by your ally, so your side, you heal allies by 20% of their max HP. Every 6 turns enemies takes, you place fear on all enemies. And then accuracy on all battles. He has great base stats overall, guys. I love this champion. Obviously, he's going to be S tier with the right team. I'm talking Wixwell teams with the buffs requiring the buff duration extensions. But even without those highly synergistic teams, I think as a kit standalone, he's really, really good by himself. Obviously, he brings crowd control, the true fear. He brings heals, lots of support, turn meter boosting as well. And then he brings damage here as well. His A1 is actually super annoying. Also brings the debuff spread here. And he's got great base stats, 108 base speed, 23k HP. So to me, he's an obvious S tier champion when he has the right team. But I think even without the right team, he probably could sneak himself into the S tier must do. He's very, very close. Moving on to our next champion here. This is the anniversary champion, I believe the 6th anniversary or whatever from 2025. Fabian transformed the meta when he came into the scene for Arena. Excellent for waves, excellent for PvE. He's not going to be great against bosses, unfortunately, but any kind of wave-based content is absolutely insane. Cooldown reduction, he's bringing all the CCs in the world, constant CCs, and then speed in all battles as well. 109 base speed. So really, really strong champion. Obvious S tier champion, so I'm going to put him right here ahead of Donatello for his overall impact in the entire game. Was an obvious must do, and he's still doing really well, even though there's so many mythicals in the game. Up next, we have Sanguine Maria. Really good champion. Obviously got a little bit of flack because she was in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle collab, so people were skipping her to go for Leonardo and all that stuff. But she's actually a really, really strong champion. Actually, she got a little bit of flack for getting nerfed a couple times as well. So that was kind of bad, but, unintended gameplay or whatever. But here she is, and she's still good even after all the changes that happened to her. She has a really cool passive here that actually gives her insane damage mitigation, which is actually nuts. So every 3rd hit, she takes less and less damage and then resets and then takes less and less. Same thing goes for her damage. It goes up and then comes back down to the base and then goes up and up. And she kind of has this comeback passive as well. Whenever an enemy is revived, she can come back. Deals lots of damage. She has this really crazy ability here that goes through stone skin, block damage, and up to 99% of the target's defense. If you take this skill on a turn that is divisible by 3. Now that applies to her turn, her 3rd turn, not your team's 3rd turn. So it's a little bit harder to set up, but she does have extra turn mechanics in her kit. She does have the ability to take extra turns on her A3 as well, and she hits pretty good. And generally, she's just kind of a hard champion to deal with. You can't really keep track of what's going on, and as an enemy playing against her, you can't really keep track of what's going on either. So I fall short of calling her an S tier champion, but for me, she's a very, very strong A tier champion. But she definitely has the potential to be in the S tier. All right, up next, we got Granyt Doorkeep here. Increased accuracy on the A2 with a decreased defense block buffs. This might be the best decreased defense block buff 3-turn ability in the entire game. He does bring increased accuracy here as well. And then he brings the Shatter, increased crit damage on the A3. So he does a lot for your team, and then he's supposed to be a damage dealer as well. His A3 can hit okay. It will ignore stone skin, block damage, unkillable, and all that stuff. I think his best use case is probably just as a team support. He brings nice debuffs, nice buffs, and he's got triple hit steal here as well, which is kind of annoying. Solid champ, a stacked faction, unfortunately, so he's not going to shine as bright. I think he's definitely a very, very good champion, so a very solid A tier champion for me. Sticking with the dwarf faction here, we have Tholin Foulbeard. Now, this guy was I think he was a free promo champion during the time that his fusion was on. That created a little bit of controversy as well. But this champion is actually really, really good. He's got an A1 AoE, chance to place weaken. Not a big chance, but it's still a chance. Got an A2 here, single target double hit with ignore defense, and then he stacks up his attack as well and decreases the target's attack as well. And then he's got an A3 here with the self-buffing increase attack. Big AoE slam here. His passive pumps out more damage as well. I think he's a good damage dealer overall. He's got really high base attack, so you can build him out to do tons and tons of damage. Pretty good against bosses, pretty good against waves, can be used in lots of different areas. I think he's just a general solid champion. I'm going to put him right there and right next to Maria. All right, guys, so flying back in time to the first fusion of all time, we got Sir Nicholas. Apparently I wasn't around when his fusion was around, but apparently his fusion was the easiest of all time, I think. But anyways, this guy was really good back in the day when he was first introduced, and then he definitely fell off super hard, but he's just got a recent rework, and now he's super good again. So his A2 got a huge buff here with Lady Noelle. He now ignores 30% of the target's defense with this ability. His unkillable ability now also brings counterattack and taunt. Taunt with Lady Noelle. Taunt is very, very annoying. The counterattack allows his A1 to come in, freeze you constantly, which is a good and bad thing because the wand exists. So the wand can send the freeze back to him. And because it's irresistible, he can't protect himself from his own freeze, which is absolutely insane. So that's a big negative against him when he's playing against somebody with the wand. And then he got a brand new passive as well, which makes everything under a shield really, really hard to kill. And this doesn't require Lady Noelle on the team to be active. Now, for me, Sir Nicholas as a standalone champion, I think is actually insanely good by himself. He doesn't require accuracy to do any of his stuff. He can make unkillable teams, like clan boss teams. He can be an absolute menace in the arena. You can build him in protection. You can build him in pure damage. Yeah, he's just an insane, insane champion. And I think he belongs in the S tier by himself, and with Lady Noelle, he obviously will be an S tier as well. His kit elevates a lot, but even without Lady Noelle, I think he belongs in the S tier, just how much he can help people's accounts out of all ages and all progress levels. Moving on to our next champion here, we got Shamrock. Now, Shamrock I did use quite a bit because on a 3-turn cooldown, he does bring increased speed, increased defense, increased crit rate, and then this conditional revive on death and conditional continuous heal. It is on a 3-turn cooldown, which is relatively okay. And I did use him quite a bit in Hydra. This ability is actually pretty okay. His A3, not as okay. It's a 4-turn AoE decreased speed. It is a touchless ability, but this probably should have been like a 3-turn cooldown, or he should have little bit, maybe not conditional turn meter fill, for example. This ability is very, very weak, but his A2 is very decent, and his A1 has a little bit of a steal. He is useful, but I wouldn't say he's a very good champion, so I'm going to put him firmly in the B category here. Next fusion on the list, we have Foli. Foli actually was using for quite a bit. He was one of my first nukers I built on my account, mainly because he looks super cool. And his ability here is really, really good. Which one? His passive ability. His passive ability, whenever any kind of this CC gets landed on him, he gets a big turn meter boost, which allows him to kind of cut in. So you can kind of bring Foli in against a team that kind of brings that CC, and then he can bring that big turn meter boost, cut in. And then he has this ability here that block revives, which is really cool. Now, he doesn't hit hard enough. Obviously, he doesn't have any ignore anything in his kit. And his multipliers aren't insane, so he's not going to be super strong for PvP. It would be nice to see him get like a really big update for this. It would be nice just give him like ignore 30% enemy defense. That would be nice. Ignore 30% enemy defense, and he would probably instantly be okay. Now the funny thing about him is that he can be okay for clan boss in the beginning. He's got an A1 decreased defense, and he brings leech, so he does have some boss capabilities as well. So it's kind of interesting. You definitely could find some use for him. So I'm not going to say he's totally limited, but I'm going to put him down here in the B tier. All right, back to the dwarves. We got Maulie Tankard here, one of the earliest fusions. Good thing about her, 3-turn AoE, provoke, touchless. It can be a 2-turn provoke, which is huge because on a 3-turn cooldown, you can get back to this ability relatively quickly, and then you can basically just perma, provoke, whatever. Usually I use her for the head of decay against Hydra, and then just perma provoke that head. A1, kind of useless. A3 does bring a revive here as a single target revive. Passive can be cool. Had some use way back in the day, back in the many years ago. If she gets hit, then she fills the turn meter of your allies, which allows them to kind of cut in. So previously she was kind of like a counter to like Hegemon and stuff like that, giving your team like a bit of a turn meter boost to cut in. But I think for general crowd control, I think this provoke is just really good, and she does bring a little bit of support. I would say she's probably still in the A tier. She's a good champion overall, and if you pick her up, probably gonna do some good for you. All right, up next we got a Harvest Jack. If you guys didn't know, if you guys have Harvest Jack, he's going to get a buff in March. So make sure you guys hold on to him. Don't feed him off and stuff like that. But Harvest Jack, yeah, definitely needs a buff. He has crazy base HP, 27,000 base HP. 4-turn cooldown, AoE, True Fear, and Decreased Speed. This is not that great, True Fear. I mean, yeah, it's fine. Decreased Speed here gets fine. And then he plays his Sleep. So he'll get some kind of CC off and then decrease speed on this ability on a 4-turn cooldown. This is probably the best part of his kit. His A2 here, he's got a 3-turn cooldown, AoE, block buffs, conditional. Now, they have to have fear for the block buffs to happen. Obviously, like for example, Granyt Doorkeep plays his block buffs regardless on a 3-turn cooldown. So why is this conditional? He strips increase attack and then replaces it. So it's like a buff flip to decrease attack, and then he removes any continuous heals from the target and replaces them with the poison. This is such a conditional ability that it's just pure garbage. Like, he should just have a 3-turn cooldown ability, place block buffs, place decrease attack, place continuous heals, or whatever, place poisons on a 3-turn cooldown. Like, it doesn't need all these conditions. So yeah, just look out for a buff for him. He's definitely, he definitely needs one. He's got an A1 steal here, chance to steal. And then he has a passive here that decreases the duration of all buffs on the attacker by 1 turn when he is attacked. It's a generally pretty weak passive. I mean, it could be a little bit better. But I would say overall his use is pretty limited, especially if you want to use him in faction wars, because he's in a really, really strong faction as well. Up next, we have Brachus from the Skinwalkers. Pretty cool champion. He was actually one of the first like cool nuking legendaries that I remember that I got myself. He has this big attack here at 4-turn cooldown, increase attack, triple hit with a chance to place fear and all that. He's got an A2 here, 6 hitter. He's going to place a weaken, and then it does bring some heals as well. And he has more self-healing on his A1 as well. Now, he doesn't ignore, anything, Stone Skin, ignore defense or anything like that. So he kind of needs that in his kit to be better. He does have this kind of fury ability baked into his passive, which is pretty okay. It should just, go in. I don't know. It should just keep going. 40%. Why cap it at 40%? And he has a built-in survivability mechanic, which is good. But he just needs to deal a little bit more damage. His base attack is already kind of low. So Plarium already bounced him already. But personally speaking, in terms of damage dealers for Skinwalker, he doesn't rank very, very highly. So unfortunately, I think for Brachus, he kind of does belong in the D tier. He just has so limited use. Not a crazy damage dealer for this faction, especially. Doesn't bring any super relevant debuffs. And yeah, crowd control is not really there. But he does have a really good passive, damage boosting, and survivability. So hopefully they buff him in the future. Basically just give him a little bit more in his kit, make him hit a little bit hard, and then he can be useful again. All right, up next we got Tormin the Cold. This guy is really good. I don't know how many nerfs this guy's had, but when he came into the game, he was a huge meta changer. Back then, there was no Stone Skin and stuff. It was all Arbiter speed teams, and Tormin was the, he was the answer. He was the answer to all of that. But yeah, he was nerfed many, many times. His passive is incredibly strong. He has crowd control on his A3. He has a strip on his A2, and his A1 is more crowd control, and it's an AoE attack as well. He does have a partner bonus now with Hilvi, and Hilvi is actually really, really strong together with Tormin. I would say if you're just going to use him for PvE purposes, he's going to be really good at taking care of waves, helping you progress through content. And he still has pretty good use in Arena. And now with Hilvi, we're seeing a little bit of a resurgence in his overall usefulness. I think he's going to be probably an S tier champion, especially with Hilvi. Without Hilvi, I think his usefulness is probably limited to some wave, some progression, maybe some arena. So I would say he probably belongs in the A tier and not an S tier champion. But with Hilvi, I would say he's probably an S tier champion. All right, moving on to another champion that has been nerfed a million times. We got Rotos, the Lost Groom here. I love Rotos. Rotos is one of my few +1 champions or Empire champions on my account. I do use him a lot in Arena. Not so much anymore, but in the past, I've used him a lot. He's carried me super, super hard. Crazy passive that stood the test of time. Basically, when he gets hit by an attack that exceeds his 50% of his max HP, going to get reduced. and he's going to get an extra turn right away. He has inevitability baked into his kit because he just keeps stacking up his damage and HP, and then he has the block revive with his A3. He's got an extra turn mechanic with his A1, which is super crazy. He scales off of attack and HP. So even when you find like obscure things, obscure pieces of gear that have random rolls in it, he's going to get some benefit from it as well. He has a partner bonus with Sifi, but honestly, he doesn't need Sifi to be insane. So for me, he fits right into the S tier. He doesn't require accuracy in his kit as well. Just build him for big damage. If you don't even have the best gear on Rotos, you can build him really slow, but just give him big damage and then take advantage of his passive, which gives him a turn when he takes a hit that exceeds his half his life. Then you can actually just utilize him for his damage and basically don't even care about his speed. Now that's one way to build him if you don't have the gear. But for me, this guy's an overall powerhouse and belongs in the S tier. Up next, we have Cillian the Lucky here. Now, I'm not a big fan of this guy. He was buffed, but I don't like the randomness of his passive, placing a bunch of random buffs on himself. You just don't know what you're going to get. How can you build around this champion or build around this passive, right? His A2 is really bad value, 4-turn AoE block actives. Like, for example, we have other champions that are doing block actives and more for the same duration or less. This is not a great ability. And then he's got an A3 here with a 3-turn cooldown, single target hit with a stun, and then turn meter steal. This is pretty outdated. For example, if you compare this to Arman's, I know Arman's is like, top, but Arman's does this ability to everyone. Yeah, he does this ability to everybody. So it's just not even in the same league. His A1 brings a decreased speed. So for me, his general use is just very, very limited. So I'm going to put him down here in the D tier. Up next, we got Skull Lord Vargal. He's got multi-hit A1 with the heal reduction. Can be actually pretty useful. He's got Touchless Provoke here, which again can be good. Brings strength in as well. And it's got an AoE decrease attack. His passive can be cool. It does revive a random ally from the Lizardman every turn. He's got absolute unit base stats here. He's got some of the craziest total base stats in the entire game. There is some use for this guy. He's very good for faction wars because of this passive. So he just passively revives, your Lizardman. And his other passive here that destroys max HP is actually really, really strong for like Scarab King. And his Touchless Provoke can be useful in Hydra. So he actually does have some use cases. He also brings heal reduction as well, which can be good in the Grim Forest if you need him for that. But I think they purposely just didn't give him too much in his overall kit because, I don't know, they just didn't want to make him like out of balance, I guess, because his crazy base stats, he has the... I just feel his kit's kind of, lacking. It's just kind of lacking, but I know he's very useful in a lot of areas, especially if you need him for that. So I'm going to put him firmly in the very useful category, but just falling short of the good category. All right, up next we got Gurptuk Mossed Beard. Now this guy, he's obviously a staple in teams that boost Trunda damage or individual champion damage. Now outside of those applications, I don't see this guy being very good. He's bringing A1 continuous heal. He has a cleanse on one ally on a 3-turn cooldown, and then he has this ability, which is an AoE block buff on a 3-turn cooldown. This could be something. And he does, boost the damage of your team a little bit with the poisons, but the AoE block buffs, I don't think is enough in his kit to make him super, super useful. And I don't think people use him just for this. It just doesn't really justify using the books for him. So for me, I think he has pretty limited use. Obviously, he's going to be very, very good in the right team, but I would say for that, he's probably pretty limited. But I'm going to put him at the top of the limited tier here. Next up, we have Kantra the Cyclone. Now, she's actually pretty decent. I know it's a little bit random on her debuffs on her A2, but she has a 75% chance based on her passive to provoke, kind of passively. So she doesn't need to take a turn or anything like that, and it just happens if they have 5 or more debuffs. You can kind of power those debuffs by using this ability, obviously in the right team. You can put those debuffs on much faster. She's actually quite hard to kill. She has passive healing. She has passive damage reduction as well. She can bypass weak hits, which is amazing. She has an A1 that can steal as well, and then accuracy in all battles. Personally speaking, I was using her for a pretty long time in Hydra, and I think she's actually pretty decent. So I'm going to stuff her right here in the B tier. Very useful champion, but short of being a good champion. Now, next up, we have Wixwell. So Wixwell was the first kind of community voted champion, which is pretty interesting. Yeah, This guy did some stuff. He did some stuff. He's really good. He's got the increased defense. He got the shield. He's got the intercept, which is, was a new buff at that time. He's got AoE decrease attack and the shield growth. He's got the A1 provoke as well. Very useful in like general, like Hydra content. He doesn't need anybody to be good. He's got the A1 provoke. He's got, protection kind of stats and buffs, so he can protect your team. He does have a passive here that plays counterattack on himself, which is kind of weird. But it does kind of work, right? If you build him with resistance, he can be your mischief target. So he can soak up all those, buff stealing attacks. And then if the head of decay attacks him and then he has a counterattack, he will counterattack with the provoke and then constantly keep the head of decay provoked. And of course, he's insane in all these shield teams, past, present, and future, I'm sure. So for me, Wixwell is a bona fide S tier champion with or without anybody. Not to mention that he's actually insane in clan boss as well, and he doesn't require specific champions, but he does obviously need some help with the team extensions, the buff extensions. But I think his overall usefulness is just really crazy. He's a really crazy champion. Up next, we have Eostrid Dream Song here. He's got the A1 Sleep. This is a little bit of a weird ability for her because I think she was supposed to be an arena champion. I mean, she could be an arena champion still for you. She's a very good kit for that. She's got increased speed, increased attack, and then turn meter filled by 15%. Also an extra turn here. Goes right into this. Decreased speed, weaken, and a turn meter drop. This ability, even without having the turn meter drop happen, is really good for Hydra. Decreased speed and weaken on the AoE against Hydra is very solid. And then you got the increased speed, increased attack, which is also very needed for Hydra as well. She also kind of brings passive healing as well on her passive. Great base stats, great base speed, 115 base speed. Really, really good champion. She could be an arena speed booster. She's a very good support champion for Hydra. I would list her very highly in the A tier. She's a bit different than these two damage dealers here, but she's definitely way better than Yuki Massa as a support and as a, she's not a damage dealer, but I would probably put her, probably here, the top of A tier. Just a great general, like kind of support champion. All right, up next we got Armans. This was the 5th anniversary champion. I would say this is the champion that kind of started it all. Armans gave everybody a chance, or at least a usable, strong champion against the crazy power creep that was happening with the mythical champions, the blessings, and all that. Armans was kind of the answer for that, giving everybody an accessible top arena champion. He was a meta changer. He was basically, the champion that everybody was moaning about for at least a year until, people found some answers to him. The big one basically being like polymorph. But I'll say that of that, Armans was basically just running the show. Rightfully so. He has an insane ability here. He's got 3-turn full attack. It's a full enemy stun with a turn meter steal. And then he has this ability here, single target sheep ability. Doesn't factor in the affinity or anything like that. Just crazy. And then, of course, speed in arena battles here as well. Very, very strong. Nowadays, he's not as strong anymore, mainly because of the Wand of Submission. Basically stunning him back or sheeping him. So he has like roughly a 50% chance if you have a leveled up wand to sheep himself. And then, if you have multiple wands on your team and then he places AoE stuns on everybody, he's probably just going to stun himself as well. So he's fallen off quite a bit in terms of just how powerful he is, but he's still an insanely powerful champion. And at that time, he's easily a must-do champion. I'm going to put him right here behind Fabian because I think Fabian is actually better than Armans in this current situation for Armans with the Wand of Submission and all that. Up next, we have Queen Ancora here. Very cool champion. She's got a 3-turn AoE cleanse with the shield, single target revive, and this is very, very strong because she resets the cooldowns of the revived ally skills with pretty high turn meter, 75%. So it's likely that that champion will get a turn as well. And if it's King Narses, he's going to come back with 100% turn meter, and that is absolutely nuts because if he's dead and she revives him, he's going to come back with that big AoE slam and just wipe your entire team. Speed in all battles here. Good base stats as well, 111 base speed. Personally speaking, I use her quite a bit for live arena just because she's one of my best support champions. And maybe because my roster doesn't have that many support champions. And on my other account, I do use her with King Narses, and they've been a staple in my account ever since I got them both. I don't think she's an S tier champion by herself, but I think she's a very, very good champion by herself. And with King Narcissus, she's obviously insanely, insanely strong. So I'm going to put her back here in the S tier with King Narcissus as a synergy. But without King Narcissus, she's probably still an A tier champion for me. Next up on the list here, we got Xenogear Blade Master. Part of the Monster Hunters collab champion. She has kind of limited use. She can be used in Fire Knight with Lady Mikage. She is a Shadow Kin, so she does get that synergy from Lady Mikage's A1. The big thing about her, I think, is she does help in Chimera. So for certain accounts, you can use her in certain teams that can really help you for trials. For example, she places Leech, decrease attack, increase speed, which these are all very good for Chimera. And the A1 weekend as well. She does bring a massive speed in dungeons, but not 100% sure how super useful she will be. Obviously, she's been in the game for over 2 years now. Would be interesting to hear how many people still use her outside of super endgame teams that use her for Chimera trials only. So for me, I think she probably belongs in the limited tier, probably down in the D tier. I would say pretty close to being in the B tier. Maybe she belongs back here in the B tier for usefulness. You could use her for increased speed, and of course you could use her for decreased attack leech. And the multi-hits against Fire Knight, those could be kind of useful, I guess. Yeah, actually, yeah, probably in the B tier makes sense for her. She does have quite a lot of multi-hits on her kit. She brings some decent debuffs, and she does have a decent passive here as well. All right, up next we got Blizzard the Howler, another Christmas fusion here from a couple years ago. Decent champion. I think he wasn't very well received. He's got an A1 multi-hit here. It's good for against Fire Knight hard. He's got a increased defense, ally attack on a 3-turn cooldown. He's got an AoE crowd control with a turn meter drop. He's got passive here that allows him to cheese some content as well. Decent base stats overall. Personally speaking, I think he's a pretty good champion. He brings a lot to teams, and I think he's actually decently useful for most people, especially just crawling through the game. I'm going to put him back here in the A tier as a good champion. Next up, we have Ugir the Worm Eater. Now, this champion is supposed to be some kind of arena champion. He does bring an AoE strip with the weekend. He does buff your team conditionally on this 3-turn ability here, increase attack or increase defense with increased accuracy. And then he has a passive here that whenever an enemy is revived, instantly activates his AoE attack here, AoE strip and attack. Now, I don't think this guy is very good. I've never really found any kind of use for him. Personally speaking, he could be okay maybe in some wave content, maybe faction wars. He is in the Ogryn tribes, but I think his overall use is pretty limited. I'm going to put him back here behind Lysanthir. Sorry, not Lysanthir, but this guy, Ishiyama. I think you get decent value from his abilities, but honestly, his overall kit's just not very good, and his passive is very, very limited. Up next, we got Timid the Fool here. He was a Halloween fusion, I believe. 4-turn AoE here with the duration decreased by 3 turns. I mean, kind of use it against Stone Skin and stuff. It could be okay. And he's got a 4-turn, another AoE here as well with the increased accuracy, True Fear. Both his kits, I mean, both his skills, sorry, are 4-turn cooldowns. They're not the best. And yeah, he does get a lot better with Kaja, but I wouldn't call him S tier with Kaja or anything. And I think his overall use is pretty limited. Like, this ability can be very annoying when you're playing against him, especially in the faction wars. His passive overall is pretty weak as well. Like, for example, Fabian has the similar kind of condition here, but Fabian goes in and A2s them instead of getting 10% turn meter fill. So you can kind of see how much stronger Fabian's A2 passive is compared to Timid's passive. So when they break out of Fear or True Fear, Timid just gets 10%, and Fabian actually goes back in and petrifies them. So it's like significantly different. Personally speaking, by himself, I've never ever found any use for him, and I think he's very, very limited in his overall use case. I'm going to put him somewhere near the end here. He's pretty bad, in my opinion. Probably somewhere here. Maybe the Fear can be okay, similar to Harvest Jack, but he's pretty bad. Bambus, I wanted this guy to be good, but I think he's just lacking a little bit. He's got an A1 decreased speed here, which can be upgraded to an AoE decreased speed, which is very, very useful for Hydra. I think that's going to be one of his main roles, Hydra. And then he does bring a extension, a buff extension here. Unfortunately, it's on a 4-turn cooldown. If this was on a 3-turn cooldown, you would see Bambus a lot more in like Titus Wixwell teams. And then you got this A3 here as well on a 4-turn cooldown. Increase attack, increase accuracy. Got good base stats, got 110 base speed, but I think he's just missing a little bit in his kit to be very, very good. So I'm going to put him in okay usefulness, but he's just generally not going to be like a top champion for your account. Next up, we have Strategos Islin. He's got an A1 Provoke here. He's got an AoE decrease speed on a 3-turn cooldown, and then he brings increased defense, ally protection. His passive is super annoying as well. He's some crazy heal ability, crazy defense ability as well. So if you build him with crazy defense, he can just heal himself and then just basically be super, super hard to kill. He can be okay in Hydra. That's kind of his best spot. AoE decrease speed, and then the Provoke here can be useful. And he kind of can help himself with his own counterattack. So he can counterattack into the Provoke and then constantly, provoke the Head of Decay. I think he's okay. I think he can be useful. He has some uses in Arena as well, just to be super annoying. So I'm going to put him somewhere in the top of the B tier, around where Kantra is, I would say. Maybe Kantra is slightly better. I think they're pretty similar, actually. All right, up next, we got Emek Trunkheart. This guy was nerfed before he was released, I believe. But basically, his shield value was capped at 10,000. Before, it was like uncapped. So then you started building like crazy shields, and then we got the crazy shield teams happening. So, I mean, I guess that was needed. So, no big deal, I guess. Just limit some of the builds, but it's just busted, right? If it wasn't limited. But the big thing about him is that he brings the cooldown reduction on a 3-turn cooldown. He has a 1-turn cooldown reduction, sorry. And then he brings a shield as well. And the other big thing about him is that he places a 4-turn team unkillable with a taunt and shield on himself. Now, the big thing about this is that you can make clan boss teams out of him. You can make all sorts of unkillable teams around him. And the fact that you combine this unkillable ability with a cooldown reduction ability in the same champion makes him ridiculously strong. He also doesn't require accuracy. You just build him with high HP, speed, the proper speeds or whatever. And this guy can do a lot of work for you. He's going to be a hard carry in a lot of wave content. He's crazy in a lot of different areas, bosses, dungeons. You can make crazy teams out of him. For me, I think he's an easy S tier champion. And it really depends where you want to put him. I think I'm going to put him maybe after Wixwell, just because Wixwell probably more impactful, even more impactful. And I think I'm going to put Wixwell like probably up here, up above Sir Nick. And I'm going to put Rotos probably so. No, Sir Nick probably there. Maybe Rotos at the end, just because Rotos kind of still one-dimensional damage dealer. Whereas like Emek and Sir Nick, they can work in many, many areas. But for me, he's an S tier champion. All right, up next we got Newt. And this guy is probably the king of S tier champions. He's the champion that everybody wants at least one of. And he's getting used in basically all content until you're like super, super endgame and you can replace him. Because even in Hydra, in Nightmare difficulty, he can still pitch in, work for you. I used him in my first Nightmare 1-key teams back in the day when Hydra was first released. And I basically use him in all my dungeons pretty much. He doesn't play particularly well in Arena, of course, but people with limited rosters will still find a lot of use for him. He's easily an S tier champion. It's where you want to put him, and I think he probably belongs in the top of all time, or at least in the conversation of top 2 of all time, perhaps. You guys can let me know in the comments below if you think the Nut is the GOAT. Up next, we have Razelvar. Razelvar actually a really strong champion. Speed in all battles here. He's got multiple AoEs, AoE Leech, and then he's got AoE increase speed, increase accuracy as well. Passive that increases his speed, and he has damage based off of attack and speed. Pretty good champion. Can be used for Fire Knight, for example. Can be used for Hydras. Can even be used for like Arena, actually. Not a bad champion. Relevant debuffs, relevant buffs. Can pitch in some damage as well. So good champion for me. I'm going to put him right here next to Granyt. Up next, we have Owella. So Owella recently got a big boost from those Titus teams, especially Titus Chimera teams. Just because Chimera requires such crazy resistance to prevent your buffs from getting stripped off. She does bring increased resistance. Not too many champions bring increased resistance, but she does on a 3-turn cooldown with a big Terminator boost. 30% Terminator boost is huge. It's on a 3-turn cooldown as well. She also brings increased duration or ally buffs, which is really, really important and a must for Titus teams. The heal is also huge as well, 30% of their max HP. It's got an A1 decreased speed, which is also very good. She has a really good kit actually for Chimera and especially for those Titus teams. Outside of that, though, she doesn't really see too much use. Now, you can use kind of the same framework for Hydra teams as well, but resistance is a little bit easier to hit for Hydras. so she's not as necessary there. So her main spot is actually just Chimera. Now, I think her overall kit's a little bit plain, but you do get pretty good value from her abilities. Like I said, 3-turn cooldown here with a 30% turn meter boost and a 3-turn cooldown here as well. Like I said, you get some pretty good value from each ability, but her kit is a little bit on the plain and a little bit less useful than, what, good standalone champions should be. So I'm going to put her somewhere in the B tier as a useful champion, but overall still kind of average. Up next, we have Supreme Elhain. I do have her. I did use her for a little bit. She is a void affinity damage dealer. She can hit hard if they have, if they're stacked up with debuffs, right? Her A3 ignores ally protection, strengthen, and shield. Unfortunately, doesn't ignore unkillable or stone skin. But she can hit hard. She can hit hard. Her stats are not the best. She does have a damage boosting passive here as well, but she's kind of just a generic damage dealer. She is a void affinity damage dealer, which increases her value a little bit. But unless she's kind of like your only option, she might not even be your best option, because somebody like Skull Crown, for example, who's a pretty good epic damage dealer and also brings speed aura as well, and a unkillable passive, could probably do similar amounts of damage as her. Obviously, once she starts chaining off, like she gets a kill, she gets chaining off multiple attacks, then she's going to deal more. But I just don't really find her super strong. She's kind of just a generic damage dealer. So she probably belongs at the bottom of the B tier here. Probably, I'd probably say probably below some of the debuffers. Firmly average for me. Next champion on the list, we have Pyxion. Pyxion, probably 3 years old by now. I think when I started making YouTube videos, Pyxion was the first fusion that was still active when I was starting making raid YouTube videos. And at that time, this guy was absolutely insane, right? He's absolutely insane. He's basically just like a Force Affinity Duchess, a little bit on the weaker side because he's more passive, whereas Duchess can be more offensive with the increased attack and stuff. But he brings a cleanse, which is really useful, with a big heal, block debuffs as well, A1 heal, and then he brings the team-wide revive with the strengthen, and then he has damage mitigation on his passive. Big base stats from him as well. I think the years since he has been power crept a little bit, but he's still very strong as a carry. Can be used in lots of areas. Obviously very good whenever you get him as an option for like Centranos or anything like that. But I think his overall kit just doesn't do enough. Like he heals on the A1 and then he has a heal on the A2, and that's kind of it if you don't use his revive. So he just doesn't really do enough. But I think he still belongs in the good champion. Obviously, you're happy to get him, especially early on. He's a huge carry. I'm going to put him somewhere in the middle of the good, probably above Yuki Massa, somewhere around there. All right, next up we have another Christmas fusion. It's going to be Nishak Vermin Lord. This guy is actually insanely good, and he stood the test of time too as well. The bombs have gotten way better, but the thing about him is that he's really good in PvE and PvP because his kit does give him a damage boost against PvE content. You can kind of see here his A1 bombs do get a damage boost, which is really nice. Bomb debuffs placed by this skill, whose max HP is equal, and then this bomb debuffs as well. So all his bomb debuffs are really good against PvE content, and then he actually has a decreased attack here as well, which is really good against PvE content. He gets an instant turn right away, or an extra turn right away, and he also has a passive that gives poisons, which can pitch in for more damage against PvE content. Now, bombs have recently, ever since Stone Skin becoming so popular, since the years that it's been introduced, bombs have had a little bit of a comeback. So Nishak's one of the more reliable bombing champions out there. So he's found use case in both PvE and PvP content, and he's great by himself. He doesn't need anybody to help him out. So for me, I think he does belong in the S tier category here, probably somewhere around the bottom end. He's not going to transform your teams, but as a standalone champion, he's actually insanely good. Up next, we have Morgaine here. Morgaine's actually a decent champion. She does bring speed in all battles. She does have this turn meter decrease, turn meter boost, and increased speed. It's a relatively decent kind of arena ability as well. She does places fear on everybody, and then she does steal a bunch of buffs. And she has this passive heal reduction here that's protected, which can be really good, obviously, for Amius and stuff like that. And obviously against the Grim Forest, right? Her A1 also brings a single target decrease speed as well. So she has increased speed here, she has fears, and then she has a decreased speed. and she has this as well. I mean, it would have been nicer if the decreased speed was maybe on the AoE instead of the single target. That would have been a lot better and give her more of a turn meter control champion. But I think generally she's still a relatively good turn meter champion and a control champion. Pair that with the speed in all battles as well. I think she's relatively useful. I'm going to put her in the good category. All right, up next we have Mary Annex here. So the big thing about her is that she's supposed to be a damage dealer. And she was one of the first champions that brought an AoE, decreased defense, and Hex on the same ability. Back then, the curse set wasn't fixed yet. So getting Hex was actually not easy. So this ability actually had high value. Nowadays, you can just put a curse set on a decreased defense champion, and then you have this pretty much the same ability. Obviously, this is 100%, and the curse set is not, but it's pretty close. Outside of that, she doesn't really bring too much. She's supposed to bring damage, but she doesn't really bring that much damage. And the rest of her kit, like she places unkillable on herself and shields. Sorry, she doesn't place unkillable. She ignores unkillable and then she ignores shields if they're under Hex. Now, this seems like more of an arena ability, and she's definitely not an arena champion. You can definitely, maybe for decreased defense, Hex against Hydra, but honestly, I've never ever used her ever. And she's just not going to be super great, not going to be super useful. Probably not worth spending the books to get her up to speed as well. So I'm going to put her down in the limited category here. Up next, we have Mighty Uko. He's got an A1 decreased attack, AoE, very strong. He's got an A2 AoE again. This time it's going to be a strip with a block buff, decreased accuracy if they have no buffs on them. This is potentially really strong. Unfortunately, it's on a 4-turn cooldown, and he can't guarantee that he gets the block buff, so he can't be your singular block buff champion for Hydra, which is a bit of a drag. He does bring a team-wide revive as well, and then you get the block damage here. So no turn meter, but you get the block damage, and then his passive can be super annoying. It steals a bunch of random buffs whenever the enemy places them, and then he's got speed in all battles here with 109 base speed, which is pretty decent. Now, overall usefulness was pretty useful for arena when he first came on. A lot of people were using him for arena defense, for example. For Hydra, he can be okay, maybe as a backup decrease. Backup block buffs could be useful. I mean, in a pinch, he could be your only guy for block buffs, but obviously not ideal. Still a very useful carry, very useful for skinwalkers and all that stuff. I'm going to put him somewhere in the A tier. He's still a good champion, still very useful. But obviously a little bit power creep nowadays, and you know, his kit is lacking a little bit. Maybe if this was a 3-turn, that would have been pretty good, because we do have 3-turn strips nowadays that are way stronger than its abilities. So up next, we have Lysanthir. Lysanthir, he is one of the few champions that bring a full team ally attack. So it's a 4-turn full team ally attack. Very useful against hard Fire Knight guys. Because you need every one of those attacks to go in. He does bring a AoE attack with the shield here, and then he does bring a destroy max HP A1. This can be okay. If you gear him with some damage. Can be all right. He is an HP based damage dealer. He's not going to deal crazy damage or anything like that, but the big thing about him is he is ally attack, and it is relatively rare enough that he does find quite a bit of use for this, especially for a hard Fire Knight. So he's going to fit firmly somewhere in the average/useful category for me. All right, up next we got Walking Tomb Drang. Big thing about him, HP burn on a 3-turn cooldown. It's irresistible. He doesn't require accuracy, which is amazing. He has crazy base stats. Well, I mean base HP, so he's easier to keep alive. And yeah, he's one of the easier, more accessible, irresistible HP burn champions that was available in the game. Rest of his kit, kind of meh. Has a little bit of an HP equalizer ability on the A3, and his A1 does activate the HP burns. Kind of meh, but obviously the irresistible HP burn is the most useful. It's on an AoE as well, which is really good. It's going to be useful, and yeah, going to be firmly in the B category for me. I think he's probably going to be somewhere near the end. Kind of limited use. I'm going to put him ahead of Foli here. And then we'll move on to our next champion, and that's going to be Helikath. Now, when this champion was a fusion, he's actually absolutely insane. I would say he's been power crept quite a bit. Not so much power crept, but the game kind of just moved along, moved past him a little bit. But when he was a fusion, this guy's a clear must-do, S tier, top fusions of all time kind of conversations. Still very good champion. He's got an A1 weekend. He's got the big shield here on a 3-turn cooldown, his A2, and then of course he brings the block damage. Increased defense on his A3. His passive brings some more damage here as well. I think he's probably still S tier, just because he can help carry. He can help carry accounts if you draw him early, just through content. You can make him for end game content like Siege. He can be part of some crazy Siege teams as well. He can still play some live arena as well, so he does have some use cases there. And in some places, his block damage is just going to be OP. So I think he's still probably very S tier. His kit hasn't aged too badly. It's just the game has kind of moved beyond him a little bit, I feel. But I still think he's an S tier champion, at least in terms of the overall fusions that have been given to us. Up next, we have Bivol of the Thorn. So Bivol of the Thorn, the big thing about him is that his abilities can go through weak hits, which is really, really good. 3-turn AoE Leech, AoE Provoke. Got an A1 Provoke as well, and then a AoE attack with a shield. He brings okay survivability with the Leech, extra shield, but he brings solid provoking abilities and not affected by affinity, which is great. So I'll put him somewhere in the high B tier usefulness. Put him somewhere around there. He's great for Hydra. He's great for waves. I mean, if you need him for Sacred Order, he can control waves and heal up your team with the shields and the Leech. So generally a very useful champion. Up next, we have Gaius the Gleeful. Like, he was advertised as kind of one of the first useful bomb champions for everybody, at least as far as fusions go. He's not too bad. I mean, he brings the bomb here with the sleep. So instead of reducing the turn duration, you've kind of forced the opponent into missing their turns with the sleep. He's got an A1 here to instantly detonate. A3 here to instantly detonates on one single target. And his passive's kind of cool. Basically, all bombs detonate when he dies. So it's kind of cool. I don't think he's crazy useful. And obviously some of the abilities here are a little bit inconsistent because he could place bombs and your opponent's going to have, ways to stop the sleep from happening. And then he'll never realize value from the bomb damage. The bombs can be cleansed off, so that's also another big negative. And sleep is one of the weaker CCs, so I wouldn't say he's particularly useful. So I would say his limited use case for him. Up next, we got Nari the Lucky. So I actually built and used this guy a little bit. I thought maybe his kit was going to be useful, but it's actually not. 3-turn cooldown, decrease accuracy, decrease resistance. And then he's got 4-turn provoke, counterattack here as well. This is not that useful as passive. So unless you need a 4-turn AoE provoke, it's kind of just not that good. The decreased accuracy is pretty good. Decreased resistance, not that useful, because usually when you go in with decreased resistance, you still need to bring in champions with decreased accuracy to land the decreased resistance. So it's not generally that useful. Decreased accuracy can be pretty useful, but it's just not enough for this guy's kit. He's just not very useful. Doesn't bring any CCs other than this 4-turn provoke. Not crazy high base stats or anything like that, so no revive, no way to survive in a pretty stacked faction. So I would say he's probably in the limited tier here, probably way below some of these other guys. Well, ahead of Ugir. Ugir is just so bad, but maybe not actually. Maybe these guys would be swapped. Harvest Jack, yeah, maybe these guys would be swapped. Maybe Ugir is actually even better, but definitely somewhere in the limited tier. Next champion on the list, we got Karato Fox Hunter. He gets a little bit better with Yumiko, bringing the single target stun here, and then he has an AoE block active skills here, which is good. It's obviously good. It's on a 4-turn cooldown though, unfortunately, and he doesn't hit super hard particularly. Even with Yumiko on his side, not going to boost up his damage or anything like that. It gives him, irresistible active skills, block active skills, and a extra turn and reset if he kills somebody. Now the big thing is he doesn't deal enough damage. So I would say in general his overall usefulness is probably pretty limited. Maybe for faction wars, but he's in a pretty good faction, so I'd say he's probably even worse than somebody like Gurptuk, which has a lot of use cases, but in very, very specific situations. Oh, pardon, Clan Father. Now this guy removes block buffs. He removes soft cleanses some stuff, places 2 continuous heals and block debuffs. The big thing about Opardin is that he got a huge buff from Senna being in the game, and because Senna can utilize all his continuous heals, it actually made him a little bit more useful. Outside of that, I don't think he's particularly useful. He brings a lot of continuous heal kind of synergy, but it's just not on the same level as somebody like Senna, for example. But together they do work and they do have some use together. But I think by himself, he's kind of useless. He does bring some pretty big heals, and he could be a decent support maybe if you're starting off in the game. And pair that with the fact that he does have some, usefulness with endgame teams like with Senna. We'll put him in the end of the useful category here. All right, so Tatora Rhyme he's got the A1 decreased accuracy, was pretty useful for like Bommel when Bommel was super hard. And he brings a reasonable 3-turn block debuffs, increase defense here, which was really strong when he was released because back then we just didn't have too many options. And then he has an attack here with a Veil, which can be very good for like Hydra and stuff like that. So, you know, he's actually a decent champion. His overall kit's not too bad. Skills are not too bad. I would say he's definitely average, useful, probably somewhere in the higher ups of that. So I'm going to put him somewhere around here, maybe Lysanthir levels. Still an okay champion, still a useful champion for some teams. Up next, we have Vlad the Nightborn here. Vlad's actually very solid. I like him quite a bit. He's bringing a 3-turn AoE decrease defense with a block active skill. So you've seen some of these champions with block active skills on 4-turn cooldowns and all that stuff, and that's kind of all they do. Well, Vlad brings decreased defense and block actives on a 3-turn. Very good ability here. He also has another AoE here, placing Leech. He got a max HP destroy A1, and then he has this revive on death whenever he kills an enemy, which actually is quite useful. He does have some partner synergy here with Constantine, but it's honestly not that insane. He gets quite a bit of a boost here when he kills somebody, but he doesn't have insane damage stats or anything like that. You can see his base attack here is a little bit on the low side. But if you build him out to be really strong, a good damage dealer, he can actually do quite a bit of work for you. I think he's actually a good champion. He's very strong in faction wars and just general wave-based content. He can be very good. So personally speaking, I think he's actually a good champion. So I'm going to put him in the good tier. All right, up next, we got Sigmund High Shield here. Sigmund High Shield. Now, a small little note here is that during his fusion, the epics to fuse him was actually Demitha. So one of the best epics of all time was used to fuse this guy. And yeah, this guy is not that great. He's got an A1 remove shield. He's got an A2 3-turn AoE provoke. Not 100% provoke, unfortunately. So that kind of sucks. And then he's got an A3 here with a 3-turn shield and strengthen. Now, so this ability is actually okay. But this ability really needs that 100% provoke. I think this guy's going to be in the bad category. I'm not sure where, but somewhere around probably. I would probably take him over Nari the Lucky, probably. But yeah, he's pretty bad, and he hasn't aged well with the game as well. Obviously, his kit's been power crept, and then the content has passed him as well. All right, now we're on to Rorik Wormbane. So Rorik's supposed to be a damage dealer. 1641 base attack here. He's got a big ignore defense, A3, and then he's got a A2 here. That's a big turn meter pushback, and it could be a stun. I do find him not that great, but there is 1 or 2 spots where he is useful, and he's actually really useful, and that is in Centranos. So this guy's not like, you shouldn't feed him off. I mean, you shouldn't feed off legendaries in general, but in that very specific case, he is very useful. But I think for most people, this guy cannot be used. He's just not very good. He's not a crazy damage dealer. He's supposed to be a big, like, kind of clan boss killer, I guess. He does more damage against bosses. He's immune to stun, so he's supposed to deal tons of damage against clan boss, but honestly, that's so kind of useless nowadays. You don't really need a guy like this to do something like that. So I'd say overall his kit is pretty limited, but I would say he's probably somewhere near the higher end of limited because yeah, he's really good in like 1 or 2 Centranos stages. Outside of that, he's just going to be pretty useless. Now, Versolve is next. He does have an okay kit. He brings increased defense, ally protection on a 3-turn cooldown. He does bring an AoE attack here with an AoE leech. If he gets the double hit off, it's actually really strong as an AoE HP based damage hit. He does bring an A1 chance to provoke as well, and he has a passive that helps with provokes. So technically, you could use him for like Hydra and stuff, and he could be okay there. Leech is okay. He does bring a little bit of protection for your whole team. His stats are okay, and I don't think he's that bad of a champion, but to find like some use for him, like clan boss, I guess, it's just kind of not there. But he could be okay. He could be okay for general progression. I don't think he's a bad champion overall. He just doesn't find too much use. So I'm going to put him somewhere in the useful category. Be careful when using this guy in faction wars as well. You don't really want the boss to steal your ally protection and stuff. Sticking with the Knight Revs, we're on to Mother Cybele. Cybele, very useful. A1 decrease speed here, AoE, very good. And then she does bring revive on death and increased defense on a 3-turn cooldown. This ability is a little bit gimmicky. Her passive is a little bit gimmicky, but she does bring a good speed on all bows as well. So I would say she's generally a very useful champion. Next up, we got Hern Dig here. He's actually a good champion. He's one of my first nuking champions that I had on my account. Got an A1 here, chance to get a extra turn. Got an AoE decrease defense here with decreased accuracy, and then he's got a big single target hit here with the chance to place weaken and HP burn. Got a little bit of a turn meter boosting passive as well. He's got good multipliers, but his base attack is actually quite low at 1409. He's in a really strong faction, but I do think he's pretty useful. So I'm going to put him somewhere in the useful category here. Probably around there in the high mid. Sticking with the dwarves here, we got Under Priest Brogni, considered the hardest fusion of all time when he was announced. I believe it was because there was a really long training event in there. But yeah, he's still a very useful champion, right? He brings the increased attack, shield, block debuffs on a 3-turn cooldown. That's quite a bit. Very helpful for like clan boss and stuff. It's bringing 3 buffs on a single ability on 3-turn. He has a grow ability, a shield grow ability on his A2, but it's based on damage. So he has to hit really hard. And the problem with him is that his base attack is 782, which is super low. So for him to be geared out to hit super hard, it's not that easy. Got an A1 HP burn as well. And then he has a damage reflect against his shield, which can be pretty good in terms of damage. So for him, I think he's still very good and can be a pretty strong carry for a early account, especially if you draw him pretty early and you still need help for clan boss, for example. He does a lot for clan boss. General progression, he does a lot as well. He's got 23,000 base HP, so you can put him in a big shield set, for example. It can help you out there. Good for faction wars. The block debuff is going to be really good. So for me, he's still a good champion. That doesn't really change him, but in terms of his overall usefulness and impact in the game, he's probably not that great anymore. So I'm going to put him somewhere in the low A tiers for me. Up next, we got Noelle the Huntmaster. Now, this guy was probably the first Hex champion in the game, if I remember correctly. 3-turn AoE places Hex on all enemies. It was him with the Tomb Queen, or whatever her name is. Sorry, it's the Thea the Tomb Angel. That was her. So she was the first, I think, Hex champion or requiring Hex, and Noelle is maybe like the second one. So they were apparently to have some synergies together, but Hex was also not in its current form back in the day. Hex was just really bad. It didn't give you the damage boost, so it just wasn't very useful. But he can hit. He does require a 2-turn setup though, because he does need the Hex out. And then he can, gets the extra ignore defense out, which can be pretty good. And then his passive also boosts damage as well against Hex targets. So he can do decent work. He does bring A1 decreased defense. But honestly, like outside of maybe like a Hydra, he's not going to be super useful. So I'm going to say his general use case, especially nowadays with how curse sets work, is just not going to be there. So he's going to be in the limited area for me. Next champion, Yoshi the Drunkard, probably one of the first Shadowkin champions, I think. He's for sure the first Shadowkin fusion. He's got an A1 stun. He's got an A2 here. He's got a decreased accuracy, HP burn. This is not a great ability. The big thing about him is that he does have this ability: increase attack, increase accuracy, and then also has a chance to place fear on a 3-turn cooldown. He does have a passive here, which is kind of interesting. It gives him an opportunity to cut in as well. And then he does bring speed in all bows. He's more of a setup guy, so he kind of sets up the rest of your team to do stuff, but not going to be particularly good. But he could be kind of useful. I could see him being kind of useful, but he's not insane in any regard. So I'm going to put him at the bottom of tier B here. Next champion we got is Astralon. Astralon, very cool champion. 1600 base attack. He's got an A1 decreased defense. He's got an A2 here on a 3-turn cooldown, single target hit, ignore, increased defense, strengthen, ally protection, revives an ally if he kills somebody, places a shield on himself. His big thing about him that was kind of his selling point was his 4-turn AoE stun ability. Now, obviously, an AoE stun is not a big deal nowadays, especially when you have a 4-turn AoE stun here. But back in the day, a 4-turn AoE stun was actually really good, and he's actually an okay damage dealer, especially on this A2. But nowadays, he's not particularly useful, but I think he's still okay. He does bring the AoE stun. So I'm thinking he's going to be slightly ahead of like generic damage dealer like Elhain, for example. Next champion here, we got Iron Brago. Iron Brago is one of the first fusions that I was able to complete. I don't remember, but he was one of the first ones, and he was definitely a game changer. The big thing about him is that he has this increased defense here for 3 turns. The 3-turn increased defense was really, really helpful for, speed tuning your clan boss teams when you just didn't have, great options, right? So 3-turn increased defense here on a 3-turn cooldown, very, very strong. And then he's got the provoke here as well on a 3-turn cooldown. He hit relatively good, and he has a passive here that boosts the defense of your entire team. So it was a pretty good champion for me when I first got him. Obviously, that was many, many years ago. Nowadays, he's just not going to see too much use. 3-turn increased defense, it's probably not as important nowadays. He does bring a provoke, so he can be okay for example, maybe for Hydra. And this passive defense boost is just not super relevant nowadays. So I'd say his overall usefulness is definitely on the lower side. I'm going to put him in the D tier. Next champion here, we got Pyxion. Was basically a meme for many, many years as the worst fusion of all time. She was buffed, and I think she still sucks. So I kind of forgot what she does, to be honest, but I think she still sucks. 3-turn, places increased defense, continuous heals on all allies, then attacks all enemies under freeze, places a weaken on all enemies under freeze. So she needs to freeze them. So her A3, 4-turn cooldown, attacks all enemies, has chance to freeze. That's pretty bad. That's pretty bad, right? It's pretty bad. First of all, it's an attack, so there's affinity issues. Second of all, it's a 4-turn cooldown. Second of all, look how many books it takes. Like, there's so many. It's just so bad. She's immune to freeze, which is good. It fills turn meter by 25% every time an ally receives a freeze. Okay. At the end of each turn, or ally removes all freeze from all allies. It's an active ability on a 2-turn cooldown. Yeah, just not very good. This ability just kind of sucks. Like, just straight up sucks. It needs to be a 3-turn or a strip or a 4-turn with a strip, freeze, and something else. This ability just sucks. Increased defense, continuous heal on a 3-turn, and then conditional weaken. Just sucks. I mean, she still sucks. She still sucks, but is she the worst of all time? I don't know. Probably. Probably. She's still probably one of the worst of all time. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think. Maybe she's better than Cillian. Cillian's pretty bad. Cillian's pretty bad, even though he got buffed as well. But we got some real stinkers here, so stay tuned for all that. We still got a couple more. All right, we got Elagaeus, another contender for the worst. I think he was buffed recently as well. So he's got an A1, chance to land block actives. I mean, that's pretty good, right? That's pretty good. He's got an A2 here, 3-turn cooldown, single target hit. Places target skills on cooldown, also places block buffs. Any enemy that shares the same affinity as the initial target also puts their skills on cooldown and places a block buff as well. Now, this could be kind of useful. It could be kind of useful, especially for waves. And then his A3 here, he's got 4-turn AoE attack, removes all buffs. Also has a chance of decreasing the turn meter by 20%, decrease each enemy's turn meter by additional 10% for each buff removed. This could be okay. Affinity issues here, 4-turn cooldown, not the best, but it could be okay as a control. Both of these abilities kind of are good for control. And then his passive is actually the part where it's most useful. I actually used him as a 50 to finish off undead hordes back in the day. So for me, like, he doesn't really rank as the worst of all time anymore. And I think he's somewhat useful, to be honest. So I'm going to put him somewhere here, probably ahead of Brachus, maybe even ahead of Timmet, maybe ahead of Harvest Jack, Nari, actually. I think he's just kind of more useful than these other champions where you just wouldn't even look to them to be useful. But for Elagaeus, his passive keeps him alive against the big boss slams on 21. And he does bring some crowd control, some wave control here nowadays. All right, next champion on the list, we have Dracul. Dracul is the first fusion that I actually completed, I think. And yeah, over the years, he's still one of the worst. He's got an A1 stun. He's got an A2 here on a 3-turn cooldown, increase attack, increase defense on everybody. This ability is not bad. And then he has a 4-turn ability here. Oh, sorry, these are passive effects. 4-turn active effect. And it's placing a shield equal to 15% of this champion's max HP on all allies for 3 turns. And he brings a passive heal. I think, honestly, he actually does have some use. He is part of the Ogren tribes, which is a pretty weak fraction. I remember I used him a little bit just for this ability. The block damage can be pretty good. The rest of his kit just kind of sucks, but I think he's probably slightly more useful than somebody like Brachus. You know, he's probably more useful than Harvest Jack. Probably somewhere around there. Maybe more useful than Nari. These are probably gotta be the worst. These ones gotta be worse. Sorry guys, my head's in the way. But then we got even worse champions coming up here. And let me see. Let me tell you. Vergumkar, here we go. This guy was supposed to be the fusion to help you in Doom Tower. This guy happened before Doom Tower was open. And yeah, he's totally useless, kind of, I guess. A1 stun. He's got an A2, 3-turn, removes provoke debuffs and 1 debuff from all allies. So it's a very specific debuff and then 1 random debuff. Places increased defense, also places a shield. So it's an increased defense, shield, and then a soft cleanse. His A3 on a 3-turn cooldown removes 1 buff from each enemy. It has a chance of removing 2 buffs from each enemy. Also has a chance of replacing 100% heal reduction and a decreased defense. So I think he was buffed at some point. This is not a bad ability anymore. It's actually okay. It's a, kind of a soft strip with a decreased defense on a 3-turn cooldown. It's not too bad anymore. Definitely kind of useful, to be honest. And his passive, he is immune to provoke. Fills this champion's turn meter by 20% for each enemy attempted to provoke him. I would say after his rework, he's actually way better, but previously he was just so bad. Just so bad. All right, guys, and this brings us to our last fusion, the last champion on this list, and it's going to be Cassandra's, the first fusion of 2026. Where does she actually fit in here on this massive list of all fusions of all time? Now, I think it's pretty divided on whether she's actually good or not. She has a very cool ability here on a 4-turn cooldown, increase attack, shatter, and increase speed. And then her passive effect prevents her from dying as long as she has these buffs up. It's also a self-cleanse, heal, and turn meter boost. And then she does bring a pretty big single target hit here with decreased defense, HP burn. It also applies stun if she can deal more than 50% of the target's max HP, which requires accuracy or veil. And her A1 here could be potentially a 6-hitter. It's a really good A1, turn meter pushback with a turn meter increase. Very, very good. And her passive here increases her attack and defense depending if she is getting attacked or attacking. Also brings speed in all battles. Generally speaking, her kit doesn't read too badly. It reads pretty good. Now, her base stats are definitely balanced so that her kit doesn't go buck wild. Her base attack is only 1343, unfortunately. But I do think her kit still reads quite well. Now, in general gameplay, as you guys may have seen, she doesn't perform that well. Her A2 does hit pretty hard, but the way her buffs don't really synergize with this turn meter boost, she can outrun her own buffs very quickly so that she doesn't get this passive bonus of keeping herself alive at 1 HP. And her stats are already kind of balanced into her passive so that her passive doesn't go crazy. Nevertheless, she does still deal pretty decent damage against some bosses. Unfortunately, she is still a single target damage dealer with limited AoE control, but she can deal pretty good single target damage. So I would say she is not totally garbage, and I would say she's generally a very solid, useful, average champion. So I'm going to put her somewhere in the middle here as a potential single target damage dealer. She can be useful for some accounts. All right, guys, there we have it. We have this massive, massive list of all fusions ever that has happened in this game. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think about this list here. Now, obviously, there's going to be some, debate over all of this. I could definitely fine tune some of these placements, but I think they're generally in the right area. The S tier champions, I think I really like the way they are. I think there's good reasoning why they are there the way they are. And I try to give my reasoning on why some champions are just not as good anymore or not that useful for people's accounts. Actually, I think maybe Iron Brago should be higher. He's probably still okay. He's still probably okay. I would probably put him somewhere here, actually. So let's go. Actually, we'll do some fine tuning here. Is Pyxion the worst? You guys let me know in the comments below. Yeah, I did a little rejigging, but not too much. Anyways, you guys let me know what you guys think. Pretty long video here. Hopefully you guys stuck through it. And I thank you guys for doing so if you guys did. Appreciate your time. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great day and see you guys in the next video.